Good morning. The Committee of the Whole is called to order. We would love to continue on with the Committee of the Whole on Bill 277, but unfortunately we don't have a quorum, but I'd like to thank my colleagues that have showed up this morning, Senator Chris Barnett and Senator Dwayne St. Nicholas. And with that, we will continue to maintain recess until we get a quorum. Thank you. Let's call back to order. Reminder, materials for the Committee of the Whole are in the shared session, Google Drive, folder label, Committee of the Whole, Bill number 277-37 LS. Proposed amendments must be submitted in writing to the clerk via email, sessiondrive@guamlegislature.org. Amendments not in writing will be called out of order. Reminder of the rules of engagement. We may have 3 rounds for discussion. We will begin with 1 round of questions for the panel, with each senator allotted 5 minutes for questions, not including response. If a second round is needed, we will entertain it. Otherwise, we will dismiss the panel and proceed to the amendment and comments to the bill. Time to speak may be yielded from more than one, may not be yielded from more than one member to another. A member who used that member's time on a question used all the member's time on that question and may not speak later, even if all the time yielded was not used. Questions shall be confined to the substance or nature of Bill 277. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will be called out of order and may result in removal from the hall. Proper form decorum shall be practiced by all present. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from participating. After complete discussion of the bill, I will allow the sponsors to close and I will entertain a motion for the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, followed by a motion to rise from the Committee of the Whole, at which time I'll report out the bill as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. Thank you. And with that, I advise my colleagues, we have Mr. Ed Byrne, the Director of Department of Administration, is here. He has already been sworn in. And we're still expecting the folks from GPA, but we'll just go ahead and continue on. Senator Parkinson, if you want to go ahead and give your opening on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I introduced this bill, this extension for the power credits, to alleviate the heavy burden that inflation and rising costs of living have placed on our people. In the past 21 months, our $100 monthly power credit has been a lifeline for countless households, helping them manage their energy bills and maintain their standard of living. This program returned $110 million to our people over the last 21 months, and the impact on our community has been priceless. Recently, many of our residents received their power bills without this crucial credit, and the shock was palpable. Families are struggling to make ends meet, and the sudden increase in their bills has made it even harder for them. Today, I stand before you to advocate for the extension of this vital program for another 3 months. Reports show that our government has a $42 million surplus. It's an opportunity for us to make a real difference in the lives of our people. When we have a surplus, it is our duty to return it to the people and to support them in times of need and to ensure that they can keep their lights on and their homes cool. This extension is about the heart and soul of our community. It's about standing up for our residents. It's about using our resources wisely in a way that directly benefits the people who've entrusted us with their well-being. I'm driven by the belief that every person in Guam deserves the dignity of financial stability. Let us reaffirm our commitment to fighting the rising cost of living and extending the 100 monthly power credit. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chair, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Senator Parkinson. With that, my colleagues, will begin the first round. We will begin with Senator Dwayne St. Nicholas. Do you have any questions for the panel, Mr. Byrne? Also, I'd like to remind my colleagues that you do have a copy of the CRER report that identifies how much funds we got. And just an update from Senator Parkinson's introduction, it's 46 million we have on the pot. Senator St. Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the moment, I have nothing, no questions yet. I'd like to sit back and listen to the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Senator Fisher, do you have anything to ask Mr. Byrne?
Not really, except for I'd like to thank Senator Parkinson for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Lujan, do you have any questions? None? Senator Brown, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, let me break the trend here. I do want to inquire with regards to the excess revenue because we've had previous appropriations using the same source of funding. So I'd like to know where we're at with regards to that.
Yes, good morning, Senator. That is what is reflected in the CRAR on page 3. It shows the actual revenues collected in excess of the adopted revenues and the previously appropriated sums against that 95.7 million. And the residual amount, as Senator St. Augustine reported, is 46.2 million.
And you don't anticipate there be any other obligations in the near term in the next few months that might require the use of that fund, of those funds? From your end?
There are no known requirements from the administration. Of course, the legislature is free to appropriate any amount it feels is appropriate for the appropriation against that amount, but there's none from the administration.
And if we were to do that and any unanticipated costs come up, you will have no wiggle room then?
Well, this amount is 16 million. So if the body appropriates this amount today or tomorrow, there'll still be 30 million left.
Yeah, I anticipate it's going to be fairly good in the next month or two that the legislature probably will appropriate all of those funds. It has a tendency to do that.
As far as collections are concerned, Senator, we're going into the period when collections are not, generally July and August collections are not as good as other months, but generally we make that up in September.
Well, I hope so. I mean, we just finished with, in April last month with the taxes being collected. So let's see. I'm going to be very curious to see how this rides because, I have no problem offsetting the costs. I think we've all benefited from that. We see the benefit. We're now going on 2 years. But I think I also want to relay to the public, considering our discussion just yesterday, wasn't it, with the Guam Waterworks Authority? The shock of utility bills are going to be multiplied. When our people have to end up paying the full cost of their power bill. And unfortunately, from what the information's been provided, what is going to be a drastic increase in water rates for our consumers here on Guam. And that's why, colleagues, I think we need to be mindful and cautious, particularly with regards to our northern waterlands and the increased contamination that's occurring, especially now that US EPA has raised the standard with regards to the Safe Drinking Water Act. I mean, our people are going to have to pay more than double their existing water bill, on top of what will be an increase once they absorb their power bill. So let's not kid ourselves to try to make it appear that we're the saviors here and we're doing a really good thing, even though I don't mind the issue if the excess money is available, because this is a more direct way that our people can benefit from the excess revenue that has come into the government of Guam. But in the next few months, when this expires, when there's not excess funds available, and with the anticipated cost that we're going to have to address with the Guam Waterworks Authority, and I don't know at this point if receivership is such a bad idea. Because if we're at this point where we're getting such drastic increases in the cost of water, it's got to make you wonder how we've been managing along the way, because the Guam Waterworks Authority has been borrowing money. I was there for their first initial funding that they did almost 20 years ago when the CCU took over the Guam Waterworks Authority. So they have been borrowing funds to address infrastructure. And of course they may come back and say, oh, because the standards have been raised, we have to meet these requirements. But that's just one aspect. I mean, there's still major infrastructure issues that have not been addressed. I don't know if it's a question of management, it's a question of funding, it's a question of a combination of all of that. When the ratepayers feel the real reality and the shock of what they're going to be paying that they're not paying today, then that's going to be a reality check. And I don't think it's going to reflect well on anybody at the end of the day. So let's not get too high on ourselves and think we're doing a great thing. Gee, people at Guam, please vote for me because I'm offsetting your power bill. because in the next few months, it's going to get worse, and it's going to get more challenging for our people. And I think we need to let them know so that they can also prepare for that reality, because there are factors that are happening here that are even beyond our control in the legislature to address. So with that, Mr. Chair, I don't have any further comments, and thank you to the Director of Administration for responding to my question.
Thank you. And my colleagues just like to also recognize that we do have a GPA rep. Madam Vice Speaker, do you have any questions for the panel?
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, and Manana Sidus to my colleagues and to the listening audience. You know, as I was looking over, Mr. Chair, the Bureau of Budget and Management's research comments or analysis on this bill, it showed a breakdown of what has not been obligated in the March report of the CRER, and what has already been initiated by the different 10 different laws that have already used the unobligated funds that we as a legislature is responsible for you know, putting measures in place for the funding source that we have available. That's our job. And I just want to ask Ed, I want to thank you for coming and GPA for being here. It would have been a Lester question, but I'm hoping Ed would help me here. Based on what was noted by the good author of this legislation, that the net unobligated revenue, general fund revenue, is at 46 million, but the variance on the fiscal note shows that there may be a negative at 34 based on that. Is maybe help me reconcile all that just to make sure that we have the resources, because I am an author of this measure, and I support the measure 100%. A lot of folks out there in the community have said that it's helped make a big difference. Even if it's a little, it's better than nothing. And it's a direct reflection to the community and their needs for helping that out their day-to-day, right? Working paycheck to paycheck. So just help me reconcile that, and so that I can have a feel better or a better understanding of why I want to support this measure. Please.
Good morning, Vice Speaker. Yes, certainly I can help you with that. The 46 million reflects the bills that have already been passed into law, and there's been a formal appropriation against the revenues. The fiscal note noted there are a number of other bills not yet elevated into legislation, but introduced by senators, which would appropriate money if passed, and that exceeds the amount that's available in the CRER.
So at this time presently, based on all the laws passed to date, just to date, and what we have in the CRER today versus the legislation as proposed by the good senator from Mighty, there is still revenues available to date.
To date, yes, Senator.
Okay. Mr. Chair, just wanted to make sure that we brought up that analogy to make sure that if this August body will support this measure and pass, that we are not, there's not a negative variance to date, that this was just noted that if all the bills that have been introduced to date, and if every single one of them have passed, then there may be a problem, but that's not the case to date. So I just wanted to make sure that we verified that for the record, and knowing that there is resources available at this time and date right now. So, Ndangkluna Sizos Masi for giving me the opportunity to ask the administration to at least break it down for me. Sana Masi.
Thank you, Madam Vice. Senator Shelton, you have any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank the panel for being here this morning. Also, the main sponsor of this bill for introducing it. As the previous speaker has said, this is a question that we get often. What about the extension of the power credits? And so this is something that is truly helpful to the people of Guam as we deal with the rising cost of living. It's one small thing that we can do to help, and even though this is a temporary extension, still make a big impact for our families throughout the island. So, of course, I stand in support of the measure.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Senator Parrish, do you have any question for the panel?
Hafaday, yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a couple of questions, maybe starting off with GPA. So in regards to the subsidy, what percentage of customers haven't fully used the $100 credit? Have you monitored that? Like per month, like, you know, I know there's some that use it up completely, but there's some that don't. And is there like a way to track that?
Yes, we've been looking at the database. It's been kind of hard because some customers usually pay ahead of time. But we know, like, if we look at some individual accounts, like NEM customers who has solar panels and they overbuilt it, so they never really pay the power bills. So those people have been receiving $100 credits, and they do have a credit balances.
Okay, so it's just strictly the NEM customers then?
Yes.
Okay. In regards to, let's see, this question is for Director Byrne. So yesterday I asked the question about the source of revenue increases. So maybe if you can explain what was have you analyzed the information in regards to where is this income coming from, this new revenue?
Senator, if I could refer you to page 2 of the CRER. This breaks down the revenue by its major sources and compares just for the month, but there's also subsequently a comparison for the quarter. It shows you what the adopted revenues were for the month and the actual collections for the month of April. And you can see that in all cases, except for corporate income tax, more was collected than was adopted, and the adopted amount comes out of the budget bill that you passed last August.
Yeah, but the question was like the industries, what industries is the source of this?
I don't have that information, Senator. That's something that DRT generally would have.
Okay. And then in regards to interest-bearing accounts, so any of the, when we receive revenues, are they put in interest-bearing accounts? Or sorry, whenever we get a fund money, do we put in interest-bearing accounts?
It depends on when we expect to use those funds. For most general fund stuff, it comes in and it gets spent. So generally for general fund there isn't, but the rainy day fund, for instance, is in an interest-bearing account.
Okay, so in large part, what you're saying is that the account is put in, the money's put into checking account. Is that what you're saying?
It's a checking account because there's always revolving funds.
Okay, and then do you see an opportunity to put it in a savings account? So even if it's there for, let's say, a month, or so to speak, you know, we still can gain interest from it.
We have been looking at that. You know, a lot of the money that goes into the general fund, of course, comes from federal sources, and if we earn money on federal grants, we have to give it back to the grantor. So it's rather a complicated calculation, but we are looking at it every day to see how we can best maximize our revenues.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like if there's a way we can, you know, leverage these funds, so you know, we have a continuous source of money perhaps to sustain some of these subsidy programs.
Of course, the rate of interest, I mean, it's certainly higher than it has been, but it's not, it appears to be falling now. So the opportunity for making a large amount of revenue from interest is beginning to fall away.
Yeah. Well, anything, I think if we can, I appreciate your efforts, though, to look at that, and hopefully we can implement something like that. And fees, are we offsetting the fees for any of these accounts?
Well, there is an offset for fees. All banks have a earnings credit offset. So when you look at the statement, there's a list of fees, and depending upon the balances in the account, and that, of course, is a interest rate sensitive calculation too. If there's sufficient in the account, including checking accounts, it offsets the fees.
Okay, and what is the estimate of the fees that we're paying?
I just looked at the budget, for fiscal 25, and we're expecting the net amount to be about 25,000
For the year?
for the year. Yes.
Okay. The other question I had yesterday for Lester was the reconciliation from the Department of Treasury, because for several years, I believe since 2017, Section 30 money was not completely being remitted to the government, and they were setting aside money to pay for war claims, and that program ended in 2022. Do you have any updates on that as far as reconciliation?
Yeah, it's a good thing I was watching last night when I got home. Yes. This is the situation, right? We get a certain amount of Section 30 money. During the period when war claims were being paid, U.S. Treasury took a portion of that Section 30 funds and used it to pay the war claims. When that ceased, and that was like 2 years ago, then the Section 30 money that we received reverted to the levels, basically, that we enjoyed before this amount that was taken for war claims.
Yeah, but what's left to be returned? Have you? I know
there's nothing left. They just took what they needed and then restored the Section 30 funding.
Okay, I think I have a different source on that one. Okay, but thank you. Maybe I'll ask further.
Sure.
This is a question for GPA. It's a question for GPA. So what is the updates in regards to the building of the Ukudu power plant? When can we expect it to be up and running?
Yes, they have made significant progress. It looks like they will start testing the power plant next year, February. They'll be do some phasing in, testing the turbines, testing the also steam heat recoveries. So they're projecting to be completed by September 30, 2025.
Okay, and then are we expected to see any drop in fees, any kind of utility fees in
Yes.
that one?
Once the Ukudu power plant is online, because it's very more efficient than our current plants, we anticipate the LEAC portions to go down.
Do you have an estimate of how much?
Based on current fuels, we're estimating around 16 cents.
Per kilowatt hour?
Yeah, per kilowatt hours.
What does that equal to in an average power bill, household bill?
Oh, for the LEAC side, if the average customers uses about 1,000 kilowatt hours per hour, so it'll be 16 cents times 1,000, it'll be about $160 for the LEAC portion. For the base rate, the average is about, for residential, I'll say about a little bit less than 9 cents times 1,000 kilowatt hours would be about 90.
Okay, and if we're increasing our portfolio of solar energy, would the LEAC even fall further? Or sorry, how would that affect the utility bill?
Currently, we have two big solar farms. One in I believe in Dandan, which is Talafofo. That one is about 21 cents per kilowatt hours, and that's about 25 megawatts renewables. We have second one near Marble, and that's 60 megawatts, and that is at 8.5 cents per kilowatt hours.
And so how would that affect the bill, the utility bill?
That one is already in the bill, so it's actually helping us reduce the LEAC cost.
Okay, all right, thank you for those updates. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Senator Blas, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for the panel for being here today. I guess the question is to Mr. Byrne. So, Mr. Byrne, I'm just doing some quick math here. Right now, we show about a $22 million excess in revenues that have not been appropriated. This bill, obviously for $15,828,000, that would be subtracted from this $22 million, right?
Senator, which 22 million are you looking at?
I'm looking at your number on page 3 of the CRER.
Page 3 has 22 million is on page 2. That's just the favorable variance for the month.
Okay, so what are we tracking now?
46 is on page 3.
46 is on page 3. So the 46, but you're taking into consideration, what I'm getting at is you're confident that there is enough funding in what is excess to be able to fund this program in its entirety?
As the report shows, we've got 46 million. This is roughly 16 million.
Yeah, okay.
So there
So
would be
your
30
simple
million
math is yes. Okay. Is there anything that we can anticipate, any payments, any reimbursements, any costs that we may have to anticipate or we may have to look at between now and the end of this fiscal year that has not been discussed?
I think Mr. Carlson answered this yesterday. As far as the administration is concerned, we're not aware of any significant costs that have to be offset against fiscal 24 revenues. That
Okay,
aren't already
and
budgeted.
you're right. I did ask Mr. Carlson that yesterday, but I'm going to take advantage of you being here today to ask you that question. So,
I would agree with that statement.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Parkinson. Have any questions for the panel?
Yes, I do, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, one more point of clarity because, we've had this question come up a bunch of times. But my understanding is, because in my opening statement, I said that we had $42 million available. But I understand I'm incorrect there. And it's actually, there's $46 million available. Do I have that figure correct?
Yeah, it's 46.2 million.
And that's 46.2. After all the stuff we've already done, we still have 46.2 million left.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so just my simple math says that this 46 million should be enough to cover the power credit for 3 months.
Yes, sir.
Would it also be fair to say that we have enough to also fund another power credit of, like in Bill 310?
If that's what the legislature chooses to do, yes. If that's, as I answered before, the fiscal note noted there are a number of other bills which could cause expenditures. If the legislature chooses to give priority to another round of GPA credit, then there is.
I like your use of the word priority there because there are a bunch of competing measures for the rest of this appropriation money. But, as a body, I think we should continue to prioritize these power credits with the future revenue. And from the way I see it, it seems like we have enough to And so if any of my colleagues were to make an amendment to increase this power credit to 6 months, I would wholly support that amendment, especially my colleagues who have already introduced the bill. I highly encourage you to pass that amendment forward because, you know, for the people of Guam watching, the reason we haven't done this for a much more sustained period of time is because this bill, these power credits, are on our ability to pay. So if we don't have the money, we can't do them. And right now, we have $46 million, and we only need roughly $32 million of it to get a 6-month power credit. So if there's any intrepid colleagues out there that want to get their power credit on, please make this amendment, and I will support it. Thank you, Mr. Byrne, for that information. I thought we walked in here with enough for 3 months of power credit, and you've enlightened me that we have enough for 6. And I hope my colleagues recognize the wisdom of just doing it now. We have it here. We have the mechanism. Let's do it. So please, my colleagues, let's consider potentially raising this to 6 months. With that, Mr. Chair, I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Senator Parker. Just be mindful that's not germane to the bill. Number 2, we approach bills that come out of my committee when it deals with funding is based on where we're at financially. So to assume that we have 30 million, or it's safe to assume the 30 million we have today, but when the next month comes around, if the funds does not come in, that's normal, that 30 million may not be there. So it'll be hard for the administration to try to fund something because we passed it. Just want to let you know that, not debating with you.
But I mean, like even with the 30 million, if no money came in, we would still have something like 16 million in excess revenue. Yes.
Understood. But when you combine the two, the 16 becomes 30. You basically will neutralize that. That's why we're doing one at a time so that we can move along. If the next month comes around, because I'm going to hear that other bill, then we'll find out where we're at next month. Because we also have to worry about special funds that needs to make sure it's funded. Okay? With that, Senator Barnett, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to the panel. And I'd also like to congratulate the Simon Sanchez High School Sharks class of 2024 as they're graduating literally as we speak. So congratulations to the Sharks. Just keep swimming. I'd also want to thank again the panel for being here. I did have a question for GPA, and I'm not sure if this was already covered, but there was load shedding last night. Agania Heights, an hour from 7 to 8. Yeah, Chalampago as well. Can you just provide an update on that? Is that just relative to the power plant, or?
My understanding is our PD power plant 8 and 9 tripped. I'm not quite sure what caused the trip. So we went down, so we were shortage in power, so they had to rotate. But within an hour, they're able to put the generator online.
Are we anticipating any further load shedding power outages relative to that?
It's hard to say.
Let's maintain order now. They're asking a question. That GPA and the
You're not really like the power outage information guy, are you?
No,
Okay.
I don't handle the generators.
Thank you. I think there was something said in the media this morning about more anticipated outages. I don't really have a question for the dynamic duo of finance over here relative to the power credits, because I mean, you know, the retiring speaker's right. It looks like, actually, he said that we have enough money to double the credit. I'd say 46 million. It sounds like the simple math. We have enough to triple it. Don't get mad, Mr. Chair. But I had actually a question for Mr. Byrne, and it's relative to the Guam Police Department. I had seen a memo that was written to you by the Chief of Police, and this was relative to implementing the 25% retention pay for the Guam Police Department. And I know that I've been getting a lot of comments and concerns from the officers who, for one reason or another, had anticipated that they were going to receive this retention pay during Police Week, and unfortunately that didn't happen. And just talking with the chief after Police Week, They had said that there was a delay, or that the 25% retention pay was in need of a policy that was being sorted out at the Department of Administration. So, Director Byrne, can you provide any update on the 25% retention pay for Guam Police Department officers?
Yes, Senator. And I'm always very careful not to give commitments to do something at a certain time, because as you go through these administrative processes, it generally does take longer than people anticipate. I'm currently working on it. I actually promised the governor that I'd have it out tomorrow, but because I'm here rather than working on it, I expect it to be Monday. But I am giving it priority because we want to make sure that not only the police get it, but the the intent of the whole thing is to make sure that people stay in the police department, and we can capitalize on their institutional knowledge and their experience.
That wasn't germane. I was going to stop you.
I know. Thank you for allowing me to ask, Mr. Chair. I'm just doing it on behalf of the public safety family, and we don't often get Mr. Byrne here in front of us to ask the questions. So again, I apologize to my colleagues, but I've been getting a lot of requests for information relative to that. Could I just, if Mr. Byrne...
Let's just stick to the power bill.
Okay. Well, maybe offline, if Mr. Byrne could tell me when he says that he'll be done with it Friday or Monday, how soon after that could we see the implementation, and the paychecks?
Thank you. Do you have anything else? Any other questions?
Not relative to that. Thank you again, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, do you have any questions for the panel in reference to Bill 277? Do you have any question, Madam Speaker, on the panel on Bill 277?
Mr. Chair.
Maintain order back there, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, but maybe Mr. Byrne be allowed to answer the question? Por favor.
If it's not in reference to 277, I would rule that out of order. Madam Speaker, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the question is related to whether the money we're looking at encompasses these obligations that we've been told about or not. So I'd like to hear the answer.
If it is in reference to the funds of the 46 million that's related to the GPA bill of 15 million, Mr. Byrne, does it impact at all the 46 million? The question you're asking, is there a bill that you're aware of or any requirement to be paid out of this 46?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but I think what you're asking is whether the funds required to pay this incentive to the police department would impact finances. The answer is partly, but the greater amount of funding for this will come from the lapses that we have encountered because of the attrition to the police department and not paying salaries. For the remainder of this fiscal year, for fiscal 25, it has to be budgeted.
But then should the 46 million amount that we're saying is available be reduced by part of that obligation? You're saying part of it?
No, I don't think it should, because it's not an appropriation.
It's not, but it's still going to be paid out of this money, right?
It's going to be paid from the general fund. I don't really think this schedule that we're looking at is appropriations, not expenditures.
Okay, so you still have lapses and other money left in the general fund, existing appropriations to pay for those existing liabilities, such as increase in GPDs, retention pay, increase in attorneys' pays across the board.
Well, attorneys that we've already taken account of, but we're already in June, so we've only really got 4 months left of this financial year to fund.
All right, and does any of this 46 million being allocated in any way, or do you have enough in the general fund already to take care of GMH's pronounced shortfall of 74 million for this fiscal year?
I think it's really hard to answer that question because we don't really know how big the hole for GMH is. The 74 million is a fiscal 25 budget number. I'm not really sure what the hole is in GMH for fiscal 24. But this is a general fund. GMH is supposed to be an autonomous unit. So in order for GMH to receive any subsidy, that would have to be taken by an action taken by this body.
With all due respect, Mr. Byrne, but you are part of the fiscal team assigned by executive order to help manage the Guam Memorial Hospital. What do you believe their shortfall is for FY24? You don't believe it's 74 million?
Not for fiscal 24. That was their number, and I only got their budget yesterday, Madam Speaker, so I haven't really looked at it yet. But for fiscal, that's for fiscal 25. For fiscal 24, we've already subsidized them, if you recall, to the tune of about 25 million. So any shortfall beyond that, we will be looking at the next meeting. But I know that their payables have increased. I haven't got a report from them as to the exact amount. I am happy to report that their collections have certainly improved in the last 2 months. So that picture certainly has helped. But I'm not in a position today to be able to say how much in excess of what we've already given them they might need towards the end of the year.
Well, this is just very confusing for me because it was maybe only 1 or 2 weeks ago when we talked about GMH's budget. We had a budget hearing, so the budget has been distributed prior to that. And they were very clear that they were not going to meet their revenues projected for FY24, despite us, you're correct, giving them $30 million from local appropriations. They had not yet expended the $20 million in ARP appropriations from the government, or funds from the governor for their capital improvement projects. They're working on it. But so in response to all that crisis that they were having, the governor established that by executive order, their answer, or the lieutenant governor at the time, as acting governor, said, this is the answer. We're going to establish this fiscal team. They're going to help GMH. But you're coming in here saying you don't believe they have any issues for FY24 is very surprising to me. That's not the picture that I thought we got then. And so I just want to make sure, you know, of course, as a legislature, we're going to look at the CRER, and we're going to take that 46 million, and we're going to put it towards what we think are priorities. But do you not think that GMH then needs any of that money?
Yes, Senator, I didn't say that they didn't have a problem. I did say that I'm not in a position today to know the depth of their problem. Is there a possibility they might need some of that funding? Yes, but as I also said just a few moments ago, their primary responsibility is to find that funding themselves.
Of course, but they're already threatening shutting down services, significant services, like entire departments, including ICU, I think, in one of their plans. They plan to shut the services if they say they do not receive $74 million for next fiscal year. I don't know what their plan is for the rest of this fiscal year, but that's their plan, and I asked them if they ran that by the fiscal team appointed to them. But, so this 46 million also, this is in above the revenues that we projected. So we went through this with Mr. Carlson. Thank you, Mr. Carlson, for being here yesterday. And this is from, the bulk of it is from income taxes and business privilege taxes, above what we predicted that we would receive. So Yet we're still moving forward, or the Department of Revenue and Taxation has been mandated to move forward by the governor with a real property reevaluation, and they're going to, because we did not fund that reevaluation, we did not think it needed to go forward this year. The governor is putting $1 million some from ARP funds to fund that reevaluation, to which everybody agrees will, the reevaluation will show increased property values and thus increased property taxes for most of the people, with a few exceptions, as Mr. Carlson said, for senior citizens and a couple others. But with this type of revenue excess, 46 million, you believe it's still necessary to do that revaluation?
Well, I had the opportunity to hear that discussion when I got home last night. I think Mr. Carlson mentioned that there's a statutory obligation to do it periodically. I don't think we gain anything by just ignoring it. I mean, what you do with that valuation is a senatorial decision.
No, the revaluation, the Department of Revenue and Taxation is mandated to levy taxes in accordance with the valuation, which is why the legislature did not fund that valuation for this year. We did not think this was the time. However, to go forward, that valuation is going to mandate the increased taxes. Revenue and tax does not have an option in that.
Senator, you have a bill to moderate that effect.
Yeah, my bill is correct.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Your
If
time
it
has
would get a
expired.
hearing and be passed.
Okay, your
Si
time has
Sis Masi,
expired.
Mr. Chair, my time
I'd
is
ask
up.
my Vice Speaker, do you have any question? And we're going to complete the first round.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the panel for being here this morning and answering our questions. I think it's very important, whatever questions we ask, even if it has to do with the GPA or GPD or DOE, it's important. Finances cover everything in this government of Guam, not just one entity of what we're paying for right now. Mr. Burns, you said earlier that with regards to the 25% for the police retention, and it was asked whether there is funding available to pay for that. Now, it wasn't in your, it wasn't realized before it was turned in. Is there going to be any possibility you're going to be coming to this body, this legislature, with legislation requesting an appropriation out of any excess revenue that is generated before the end of the fiscal year, FY24?
That would be a question best answered by my colleague, Mr. Carlson, but I don't personally think so.
So there's nothing in the government of Guam line agencies that you oversee, nothing at all. So you mentioned you had lapses that can cover some of these costs. So I know it's not the end of the year, and we know what happened the last time we got an audit, which didn't happen until November, kind of didn't help us out as a body here when we're trying to do the budget bill to determine what we really have left over. And you know, Mr. Byrne, in the past, we can have an audit at the end of the year, or an excess revenue at the end of the year showing $60 million, and then after the audit is done, only $30 million was really what we had in excess. So you said you don't believe that you will be coming back to this body to ask for an appropriation out of any excess revenue to cover any cost whatsoever that you may know now or come into the future? Because I just want to get that for the record. Because as we spend this money today, it's going to reflect on your answer today for the future.
Senator, I wish we all were able to look into the future with a certainty that that you are portraying. As of this moment, what I said in response to an earlier question was, because we are losing people from GPD, the numbers that we have of active, uniformed, on-patrol policemen and women is falling. We are not paying out those salaries. Therefore, I anticipate, from what I can see, as best as we can see it at this moment, that for the remaining, whenever we implement this, which is going to be like 4 or 3 months left of the financial year, that there will be no need to make any further appropriations. If there were, then the governor has a transfer authority, and that would not impact this amount because the funds have already been appropriated that she would be transferring.
How much do you have in the reserve account at this date?
Which reserve account?
You take a certain percentage of what is appropriated to every agency and set aside in a reserve account. How much is in there total?
Sandra, are you referring to the rainy day fund?
No, not the rainy day fund. There's a certain amount that's set aside. Lester, maybe you can answer that.
That's a budgetary question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Byrne.
I don't have the appropriation reserve report that we issued in front of me, but it went to the body, and you can make reference to it. I think it was sent out relatively recently, because I think it's due quarterly. So the body has it. I don't particularly have it right now.
As a director of Bureau and Budget, you don't know what that number is on how much money you have set aside from all these agencies? Or at least a roundabout,
I'm good,
Lester.
but I'm not that good. I don't have the information.
Hold on, Mr. Carlson. Senator Titlegy.
Yes, sir.
He said he doesn't have it. Regardless of his director, it was sent to the body. Please, let's not attack anybody, okay, here.
I'm not attacking. I'm not attacking. It's just ironic. He makes so much money as a director.
Maybe just ask for a copy of the committee report.
Mr. Chair, I do understand. And as your vice chair, it's important that I ask all these questions and that the public hears what's going on and knows what information is given to us. We're the ones appropriating this money, so it's very important that we do it. And for other senators to go up to you and say, oh, it's not relevant, obviously doesn't know anything about finances. So that was ridiculous for Fisher to come up to you and say something like that.
Thank you, Senator Titlegy.
Anyways, moving forward. Mr. Burns, do you consider yourself conservative?
I'm an accountant by nature, conservative.
So it is conservative, exactly. So do you think by taking this funding out right now, considering if you look at the CRER report in last year during the same time, you'll look that in April of last year's CRER report came out to $18,756,000 in excess revenue. And then in May, the end of May, it came out to $18,990 million. So we're not seeing a real big change that we saw last year. Are you anticipating that change not really happening again, or are you anticipating maybe the month of June to be a better month?
In answer to an earlier question, I indicated that receipts in May and June, and sometimes July, tend to be less than in other months because of the tax cycle. But we generally make that up pretty well in August and September.
Okay, but if you look in June last year, it went from $18,990,000 to $36 million in June. So you're saying that actually July and August is the better month?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm still conservative.
Very conservative. And I think I've asked you this question before. How much would you prefer to stay into an account of excess revenue before an audit is conducted? And I think you mentioned somewhere between $15 to $30 million at least in excess before the end of an audit. Just to be conservative, to have some funding in there in excess. Because we all know that even though these bills that pass and it requires general fund money, the money's not always there. So we have liabilities, and this is from the Office of the Public Accountability. We have money, we have obligations from prior year that still has not been paid up. So we still have those liabilities in hand. And whether the governor can utilize that money, that's one thing. So I will look at, my time is almost up, but I'll look at how much is in reserve. And the last question I have, Mr. Byrne, how much do we have in the rainy day fund to date?
It's 51.7 million.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll reserve it to the second round. Thank you.
Thank you. My colleagues, we're on the second round. We'll begin with, I'll start from the middle, Senator Lujan. Do you have any questions for the panel? None? Senator Brown?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to ask, because it wasn't that long ago, it's just a few months ago we were here, and Mr. Carlson informed us when we had a very similar bill before us, adamantly, repeatedly, that there was no $15 million to pay for that then bill to give the credit for the power bill. It actually affected the votes of a number of us on this side of the aisle because we didn't vote for it, based on the information Mr. Carlson provided us. And then much to our surprise, the governor went and signed the bill. And then there was money to pay it. So I don't know what kind of, cut and peak financing we're dealing with. But, it makes me wonder, is what we're being told accurate? Because we were provided what we were told was accurate information, only to find out that the outcome was very different. So, how do we know that the information being provided to us now is accurate?
Is that a question for?
Yes, it is. It's a very real question because it was a very real, under oath, we were told repeatedly there was no money for the power credit by Mr. Carlson, unless there's a big disconnection up on the hill at Adelup.
Do you have a, let me take a quick recess so we can find out what exact date that you're referring to.
Go ahead, you can.
Okay,
I know, I
so we'll do a
remember.
recess. Committee of the Whole is called back to order. Senator Brown, I think we have an answer to your question that you were inquiring about the reference to where we didn't have funds. And I'm going to ask both OFB and BMR to answer that because they both, in November, stated that during session that there was no money. And they can elaborate a little bit more because then what happened after that? After the bill was passed and it got down to the governor's office, then the CRE changed. Llewellyn, maybe you might want to start with the answer on that one just so we can satisfy the inquiry about we didn't have money then and all of a sudden we have money.
I'm just curious because I don't know how 1 week we don't have the money and a week later we have the money. I mean, that's just really interesting, especially that kind of money. How do we, I mean, do we go from zero bank account to, 15, 20 million in a week or two?
Okay. Llewellyn, if you can go ahead and at least answer that question in reference to what happened then during that session, and that was during the Committee of the Whole.
I guess in our review, we saw this was for round 4, GPA credit, and we both said no because at that time, if it was the October session, we would have been reviewing the September CRER, which showed a negative 308,000. But as that was being discussed, October collection showed about 13 million in collection, and that's probably why it's passed in hopes that November would be more collections. But at that time when we were asked, we did say no, based on what the CRER was reporting.
Doesn't the administration have the ability on a daily basis to know what the cash balance is in the government? Because we're talking October 26, 2023. That's pretty much close to the end of the month. Or we only wait till CRER report comes out. That's just the report. Last time I checked with the administration, you almost have a daily cash balance. Is that not the case? Because I'll tell you, then how am I going to take into consideration what we're being told today if 3 weeks from now it's going to be a different response?
Please, Ms. Vernon.
Senator, it's not the cash balance. This is an appropriation report, not a cash report.
Well, however, whatever, Mr. Burns, we're paying out money. At the end of the day, we're paying out credits, power credits to all our residents on Guam that pay a power bill. At the end of the day, it turns into cash because that's what GPA needs to continue to operate and buy the fuel and do the things they need to do. I'm amazed that our government accounting of money is just this mysterious. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me because we cannot depend on the information that you are providing to us at the time we make a decision. How do we know that it's valid? Because we know that we were told directly several times here that there was no money available, not even anticipated money, simply no money available, which was a surprise to me because up until then we were spending money like it was falling out of the sky. We were out partying with all the people's money. So tell me, after darn near 35 years in government now, how the numbers can fluctuate so quickly and one day we have nothing and then, a week later when the governor's going to sign the bill, all of a sudden we got miraculously $15 million. When I know the administration is monitoring on a daily basis because the governor has said that publicly. She's monitoring the cash revenues in the government. Because we have to have some sense of confidence, Mr. Chair, that when the administration representatives come down and tell us, because right now they're the gatekeepers of the money in the government, right? We have to rely on them. Your people and your staff are monitoring it from afar. They're the ones that know what cash is coming into the government every day. So we should have some confidence because we were told adamantly, repeatedly, I'm even going to do a Tom Fisher here and play the recording. Because it's Tom Fisher asking the question to Mr. Lester Carlson. And then even said on round 2, will you change your position? And he said no. Because how are we going to have confidence? You're telling us we have $43 million. Do we really have $43 million? It's not that difficult for the people of Guam to figure it out, Mr. Chair, because they have to, manage their money every day, what they can spend, what they can afford, what they have to sacrifice. And I just can't believe we're like this. This is how we're keeping track of the government revenue. One day we got nothing. The next day, oh my goodness, we got $15 million just in time to sign the bill. So which is it?
Yes. Mr. Carlson.
Senator Brown, this measure was discussed after the passage of the budget, and it was in addition to the spending of the government of Guam at the beginning of the fiscal year. So it was in October, and at that time, we only had the September CRER to kind of base ourselves on. And we had just passed the budget, so it's the beginning of the fiscal year. We didn't know how it is that we were going to squeeze another $15 million on top of what was already passed for the current fiscal year. So what we said was we are not sure whether or not what we anticipate collecting in October is going to be sufficient to cover not only what the budget contains, but another $15 million. It ends up that the next month, the CRER came out, and the governor's message was, we have $13 million in general fund over what we expected. So she signed the bill, and when you look at the October CRER, it shows a negative $2 million because of the $15 million. We only collected $13 million over what we thought we were going to get. So we were, again, negative. We were deficit spending, but it turned out to be okay because we have, since then, the general fund collections have come in over the adopted levels on a consistent basis. But at the time, we were just telling you that we just don't see the money. So it's different from this situation. This situation, we're 7 months into the fiscal year, where we've got $95 million over adopted levels, and then we net out the appropriations made against that $95 million by this body. And then we also take out some Healthy Future Fund shortfall, and we're still at $46 million. So I can tell you 7 months into the fiscal year where we are and that we actually collected the money. Whereas in October, we needed to have collected the operational general fund money for the fiscal 24 budget first, and then another $15 million. That was a kind of a difficult thing to be able to say, projecting forward that we're going to have the money.
We're only talking a week and a half projection. I mean, don't you guys keep track? I'm assuming your administration's like many others that, don't you have access to the daily cash revenue of the government of Guam coming in?
Yes.
Wouldn't you have anticipated? I mean, you just didn't wait till the CRER report came out of the sky and then you realized, oh, we got $15 million.
I would not have anticipated anything over what was necessary to fulfill the requirements of the 24 budget. So this was on top of the 24 budget.
Yes, I am. I totally understand that.
So, pardon me for being conservative, but at the time...
Oh, I'm shocked you were. We actually didn't expect that response.
Well...
Because you were asked many times on this floor, and that, adamantly, I mean, there was no explanation other than, no, we don't have the money.
We didn't have
even told your good friend here at the legislature, even you, my good friend. I have to say no.
And I did. So.
I'm just bringing this up, Mr. Chair, because, I mean, this is, if this was my first rodeo, I'd be like, oh, okay, I don't know any better. But I just, I don't buy how we have this kind of information and then a week and a half later we have manna from the sky. I just don't appreciate that reporting because then it gives me the question as to whether or not, and I've worked with you, Mr. Carlson, now you make me question as to whether or not the information that's being provided is accurate because that I just don't buy. If you're keeping track of the daily revenues coming to the Governor of Guam, you're at the end of October, you would have already known you're going to get additional money coming in for October, and that's not what you represented to myself, and certainly was not publicly represented. I know I'm over my time, Mr. Chair, but I think I've made my point.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
I stand by what I said back then, and, it is what it is. I will not retract what I said, and I think the people of Guam benefited from the actions of this body and the subsequent collections, despite what I said. So, it is what it is.
We just need, Mr. Chair, to be able to have confidence in the information provided, and we'll talk in a few months. We'll see where the government of Guam is in a few months. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator Brown. Vice Speaker, nothing? Senator Perez, do you have any questions for the panel?
Yeah, just a question for OFB. Do you have access to the FMIS system currently?
Not currently. We are in the process of trying to gain access. We did get our access previously, but what we saw was it wasn't populated yet. So I think they had to do a reboot of something, and we have to reapply. So we're currently working on that.
Okay, because given the CRR reports, but it'd be good to have it confirmed by your office.
Yeah, at the moment we can't confirm. Typically when we do get the CRR, we do go into the system and review the details to make sure it matches what we're seeing in the report. Of course, there's differences. There may be differences because due to timing of when things are uploaded, revenues and such expenditures as well. So, but at the moment we're relying on what the CRR is. We don't have access.
Okay. And when was the last time you were able to see real-time information, if at all?
When we had access to AS400, which is cutoff. The cutoff was around February.
February of this year. So you're pretty much running blind at this point.
Running with the CRR, yes.
Okay.
But in our review, pretty much, every month when I get the report, I do my own. I pull the numbers and go into a specific count, and pretty much matches up. So historically, I don't question what was being reported.
Okay, so you do have like a cheat sheet of some sorts where you can kind of estimate, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we independently review too, just to make sure, what we're seeing is reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you underestimating or overestimating at this point?
Again, without access to the system, I'm relying on this, relying on what is being reported in CRR. We're pretty much in line with what BBMR is reporting.
Okay, thank you. Director Byrne, when can we expect OFB to have complete access? What are the steps that are needed to expedite this?
Training, we recently issued a newsletter. Training begins June 14th. And in fact, I was talking to their director a couple of days ago, making sure that he was on the training list so that he would have access.
Okay, that's 2 weeks away. Can it be sooner than that? I mean, this is important data that we need for our budget. We're coming upon the budget. We are in the budget season. I think this should be prioritized. Is there a way to get that quicker? The access?
I don't know, but he didn't ask for it, so I didn't inquire.
Yeah, I think this is unacceptable at this point. We were told that the FMIS system would be out and launched, I believe, February. I remember we had that meeting in Adelup.
Yeah, and it was.
And we were all expecting it to be in the hands of every government or those that were eligible to get that access. And it's unfortunate that, we don't have the full information at this point. So, I'm glad that you're here, but, we really need some facilitation in this regard.
Understood. We reached out to OFB in order to make sure that they were on the schedule. If they have any questions, they know accounting will always respond to any questions.
For this appropriation, so you are certifying officers, correct? Are you a certifying officer of that funds are sufficient? Who would be the certifying officer, basically, for this, to ensure that funds are available?
For this, it would be my ASO.
It would be who?
My ASO.
So so it'd be Department of Administration.
Yes.
And your ASO, but you're the superior to the ASO, would that make you also a certifying officer?
She is a certifying officer.
Okay. Are you also a certifying officer of this?
I'm the certifying officer for the Marwa account, not for this. I'm the authorizing officer for this account.
Okay, so then we have your confirmation that there is sufficient funds.
Yes, and as Mr. Carlson has just pointed out, he, I, and the Director of Rev and Tax signed the CRER.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for those responses. And I do hope that OFB can get access sooner than June 14th, so that we can make sure we pass a proper budget. I guess a question for GPA. Does GPA have the I guess the capability for opt-out clients? Because I know we get some responses from some constituents too that, you know, they may not, they're not in need of the credit. So we do get some constituents that say they don't need the credit. I mean, is this something that is something that GPA can do if a constituent wants to opt out?
Unfortunately, we're just an agent to disperse, to put into account. That's really the call of the body. If they want to add in the option. If the body puts in the option, we will make it available to our customers.
Okay. Yeah, I can't imagine anyone would do that because, you know, it's definitely helpful in this climate, but I do get some of that, yeah. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, Speaker Therese, do you have any questions?
One of the competing measures that you discussed earlier was $5 million for GMH for nurses' pay. But I had received a letter from, I think you, Mr. Byrne, regarding, as representative of this, well, as to whether the nurses' pay was going to be taken care of out of that $30 million that we had given to GMH. Is that, can you confirm that?
I think it was the CEO of the hospital that wrote to you about using, I think it was then 7 million or thereabouts, because it happened earlier in the year for the nurses' pay. When I was reviewing it, because we've got to the point where we've only got a small balance left of the 30 million, I asked the hospital to have their counsel confirm that it would be appropriate under the law to pay out the nurses' pay from that account, because it really referred, the statute referred to payables. So I want to feel comfortable that that is an appropriate measure to take.
And you're still waiting for their response?
Yes, ma'am.
That's for the 18% differential incentive pay?
Yes.
So have they been paid the 18% incentive pay? The nurses?
I believe they have, but I haven't seen it myself.
Isn't that what the promulgation called for?
It was in April, yes. The date, I can't tell you that everybody has received it, but the effective date was the beginning of April.
All right. There are other competing appropriations for primary election, WICHI, veterans, merit bonuses, water and sewer connection, customer assistance, gas tax relief, extension of the gas tax relief, affordable housing towards Guam Housing Corp., another extension of GPA, of course, the NAFTAN Memorial, the Guam a GPD task force, and GMH. Do you still, in previous sessions, Mr. Byrne, I think you gave us an estimate that you would estimate that we would receive 8 million excess every month. Does that still hold true going forward, USA?
I think that I just estimated that was the average excess.
Well, after this, then what would you expect in the next few months of this fiscal year?
Well, we've got through 9 months. This is April, so we've got through 8 months with 92. So that's a little bit more than 8 million.
Right, and but you expect it to continue?
It's about 8 to 9 million. Yes, but with the exception that I mentioned, that May and June are not great collection months. So, but I did also indicate that I did expect that average to pick up in August and September.
All right, and so using this money for this power credit, I'm all for it, of course, but you're also representing that it's not necessary to put it towards GMH or the new nurse pay plan throughout the government or the new attorney plan throughout the government or the GPD retention or the merit bonuses. Is that correct? Department of Education.
I didn't really mention any of those.
Well, do you support this bill?
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed you're all both here for this bill, seemingly in support of the bill. So so if we pass this bill, it may impede our ability to fund anything else.
Madam Speaker, I want to make it clear. The two are not here because they support the bill, because I requested them to come here.
They're here representing the administration, and of course I think it's very relevant whether the administration supports the bill or not, because there are competing bills, as you continue and they continue to point out. So I just want to make sure we're able to take care of GMH according to the administration representatives. Especially the nurses, because they've been already promised that pay plan, or it's been implemented as far as I can tell, and the shortfalls that they discuss, but these other things. If I can ask GPA came in prior bills that I had sponsored and said that they support this power credit. They believe that the customers still needed it. Is that still GPA's position?
Yes.
The customers still need it because the costs are high for the power.
Yes, the oil price is still high.
And the estimated relief for GPA customers is not until 2025, is that correct?
Yes.
So they might need this through the next fiscal year.
Large portion of our bill is actually fuel cost. It's really depend on the fuel. I can't predict what's going to happen in the future on the fuel price.
All right. Are you expecting to raise the LEAC prices in the next few months?
Today's Thursday. On Tuesday, we petitioned the board to maintain the same rate, currently, which is 26.1995 cents, which is the current LEAC. I believe this PUC will entertain that rate in July 25th of 2025.
Thank you. Mr. Byrne, do you know how much of the 30 million is left at GMH?
Just from memory, I think it's like 3.4 million.
And the balance of the ARP funds?
Actually, I don't remember that. I think it's a report that Mr. Carlson does. This is the February report, and it was 218 million.
218 million of ARP funds still left.
As of, this is a February report. I
All
don't
right.
have an up-to-date one.
Does that include the 10 million towards GURA, for GURA to buy private land? Is that for purchase of private land?
Well, that would be coming from the hospital allocation.
Can you repeat that?
That, as the governor said, that would be coming from the hospital allocation.
So there's 218 million above the hospital allocation?
No.
That is the hospital allocation.
The hospital allocation is included.
How much is allocated towards the hospital?
133? 133.
All right. What are the other allocations?
There's a whole report, Madam Speaker, that Mr. Carlson does by the 5th of the month, which I believe you have.
I know, but they were already allocated prior to the 10 million. Are you saying that's coming out of the hospital's allocation? Okay. Does the administration take any position on which of these programs that's proposed should be prioritized?
That'll be the final question. Your time's up. If anyone would answer that, Lester or Mr. Burton? Oh, Lester.
You know, I mentioned yesterday, Speaker, that when the appropriation chair hears the appropriation measures, I think it's almost incumbent upon what is heard here. The bills that we have as, you know, appropriation measures that have been introduced by the body, they all have their upsides. They all intend to address issues. So each one of them by itself has merit. It just currently, if you were to take everything in totality, just like everything else in life, you know, you can't give everybody what they want. So there just needs to be some, you know, thought, because the measures are introduced at this body, passed by this body, and then come downtown for a decision one way or the other. But each one of them has their own merit. It's kind of almost like we'll take what the body passes as it comes. So the priority is really set here.
Oh.
That was your
My
last.
time's up. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Barnett, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? None. Senator Parkins, do you have any questions? None. Senator Blas, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just following along in the conversations and the discussions. And you know, there are many, I guess, competing interests for the funding that's going to be, or that is available, or that we anticipate to be available. And you know, one of the two areas in particular that I'm interested in, one is, of course, the needs of the hospital, needs of the healthcare system. Now, the healthcare administration, GMH, has come before this body. I'm sure has come before before you all, folks, and said that they need $74 million. Have they come to you and had that conversation? Has the hospital administration come before you, Mr. Byrne, or you, Mr. Carlson, and articulated the necessity and the need for $74 million?
Just to be clear, Senator, that $74 million is for fiscal 25.
Have they come to you before that?
Did they come and say with a number before, to me? No.
Are you a part of their fiscal team, that task force?
Yes.
Well, I find that very interesting that they come before us here and they say that they need money now to get them through the next fiscal year, and money and an increase in the next fiscal year, and they didn't have that conversation with you.
What I was trying to answer your question precisely was, did they come and say they needed 74 million? No. Did they come and say they needed money? Yes.
Okay.
But as Mr. Carlson pointed out, sometimes the requests are rather indistinct.
Okay,
and-
so
and
let's go
require
with the
information.
distinct request. He says, okay, so now there's two. They did not come to you before for $74 million, but they've come to you to ask for money.
They've come to us to express a need for money.
The need for money. How much money?
It wasn't, as I was trying to say, there wasn't a liquidated amount.
Was it an immediate need for money, or did they say that I'm just trying to discern, because when they came before this body, it was an immediate need for some infusion of cash. Have they come to you for that?
Did they come and say, we need money now?
Yes.
No. They came and said they needed equipment, they needed to pay vendors, but as Mr. Carlson said, and I just repeated, there was no clear number. I'm glad that they gave this body a number for fiscal 25. I just got the budget yesterday with that number in, and I will look at it over the next few days.
Okay, well, they say they come to you because they need equipment, they come to you because they needed some other stuff. Wouldn't that equate to they need money to be able to get that stuff?
You could infer that,
Yeah,
but it's not precise.
I think any common, sensible person can infer that. I agree with you. Okay? So the other question would be, is part of that money, obviously, and the reason why, Mr. Chair, I'm going down this road is to see whether or not, again, it goes back to the concern that was brought up by the good senator from Pago Bay, okay, about we're being told one thing, and for good reason. And I'm not saying that at that point in time we had the conversation that there was no money there, okay, back in October, November. Many of us voted based on that representation, only to find that a few days down the road, all of a sudden there was this money. At the here and now, if we were to be able to do that, because we rely on that information, back in November, that gave me the comfort level of saying, of providing the vote that I gave, that I gave back then, because of the representations that were provided then. Only to be turned around later, and I understand and I recognize the conversation, but I hope that we understand and we see why the dilemma in this thing. So, but going to GMH, and another area that I'm interested in is in the merit bonuses. Has GMH ever articulated to you that they needed $854,000 for their merit bonuses, to pay off their merit bonuses to the fiscal team?
I don't recall getting a number like that, but I'll ask my colleague if he recalls.
I've heard that that's the amount that they're needing to pay out to meet the requirements going back to 2012. Just like everybody else, they're paying it from the current appropriations, and if it puts them in a shortfall, I think you have a measure to take care of that.
All right, we do have the means. Unfortunately, we have the alternative means to be able to take care of this. What I'm getting at here, gentlemen, is I'm trying to find whether or not this administration sees it a priority or sees a priority in taking care of the needs of the hospital and the healthcare industry and its employees.
Certainly we do, sir. So.
Well, I haven't heard it over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, Mr. Carlson.
Yeah, okay, so what Mr. Byrne and I do is he has control of some of the funding that went to GMH, much to their dismay. And it's gotten to the point to where, in some instances, we provide them money, and the money is used for other purposes. So it's been kind of directed that Mr. Byrne, the money that he has, that he's holding, invoices come in from GMH, and then he prioritizes based upon their requests. Say, for example, oxygen. You know, they're behind in the vendor for oxygen, so he assists them by paying the vendor. So yes, we do, but you know, it's gotten to the point to where we have to be kind of like the gatekeeper of funds, because this body has been very generous in being able to provide subsidies. The governor's also provided some subsidies to them, but it just doesn't seem like it's enough. So we have stepped in to put some control in how the monies that are provided to them are spent.
And you know, I bring this conversation up because first off, I recognize and I understand the value and the need, you know, for this legislation, if the money exists. But if there are, when we start to talk about the competing priorities and finding out from the administration, what is the priority? Okay, can we afford the $16 million knowing that there are expenditures and expenses and other things that may come up or that we can anticipate is going to come up, and we don't have the money to be able to pay it or to provide to it? Then what are we doing? Are we basically, you know, cutting off our nose to spite our face? Mr. Byrne?
Well, speaking personally about GMH, and this is personal, you know, I spent nearly 2 years there. I know how hard people work there, and I know under what conditions some people work, but I also know that the care they give is exceptional. And I think anybody that's been there would confirm that. What we need to do, obviously, is put, you know, when I was there was when we got the bond money, and we were able to pay off all the payables that they had accumulated up to that time, which was roughly the same amount as the $30 million that we paid off this time, 6-7 years later. Give them a reasonable springboard to start, but they are responsible for their own finances. They're responsible for shepherding their own, making sure they get sufficient revenues from the billings. They are responsible for monitoring their own costs. We will, you know, we want to help, but they have to help themselves too. And I will be better answered, and I'd be happy to do so, answer your question when I have had a chance to review their budget.
Okay, one last question, Mr. Chief. It's just an observation. Okay, we rely on the consolidated revenue report and the special revenue reports to be able to make decisions in this thing. And one of the things I found very interesting is on the special revenue report, there's no longer the entry for self-insurance for medical and dental. Why is that?
That'll be your last question. Then we'll move on.
Yeah.
It's actually it's part of the general fund, is the answer. I discussed that with the auditors. I have no objection to putting it there, if that would be helpful.
It is helpful.
It's called an internal service fund. It's part of the general fund, but if senators would like it, we'll put it in there.
But it doesn't even show in any report, whether it be the CRER or the special revenue. Okay?
Thank you,
very
Senator
much,
Blas.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Teller, do you have any questions for the panel?
Yes, I do. Luan, when you were looking at the CRER report, did you notice that that was not included, the self-insured, and did you bother calling OFB to ask them why it was not in the CRER report, what Senator Blas was talking about? Because in April, there was approximately about 4.6 million in negative, and then in following month before that was about 10 million. So did you bring this up to BBMR? Why it was not included? I know you're hindered by not being able to get on the ASO, and appreciate what you're doing manually to try and look at this, but this was missing.
To answer your question, Senator, no, we didn't bring it up.
Okay, you might want to ask them. The other question is that with regards to the CRER, let's stay in that direction. We noticed that in the special fund area, when you're reporting to us, you have us down as, you incorporated the shortfall of the Healthy Futures Fund of 9.5 million. But there's also a shortfall of the Guam Highway Fund. Why was that not incorporated into the CRER report, that, all the list of liabilities?
It's offset by an appropriation, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I thought, from a previous bill. And is that number correct, though, as far as being offset?
Yeah, if you go down the Guam Highway Fund, you'll note the footnote and then the correction, and then actually it's, if I recall correctly, it's trending positively after the incorporation of the appropriation.
Okay, I'm looking at the CRER, not the special. Speaking of special funds, I did, Mr. Carlson, have the reserve report that I talked about earlier. And it shows that the general fund has right now that was put aside. We appropriate this money for these agencies to utilize. And sometimes I understand the reasoning is because you want to make sure they stay within their means and not overspend. And if they do, there's that, cushion. But when you talk about the special funds and you set aside reserves for special funds, which is totaling about 11 million, this has the governor doesn't have a transfer authority on special funds, correct?
That's correct.
But yet she still has the authority to reserve 10% from them?
That's not the governor doing that, ma'am. That's us.
Well, you work for the governor. You take direction from the governor. So the question is, this 11 million?
It's a policy that we have. It's our only form of fiscal control. As you just said, it ensures that agencies have the means at the end of the fiscal year to operate. We have very common for us to release reserves for the fourth quarter, in the second quarter for office supplies and operational requirements, because it's better to get the purchase order in the second quarter than it is to try to get something at the end of a fiscal year. So we're open, and we understand those kind of needs. But when you asked earlier about the appropriation reserve report, I had my staff send it to me, and I sent it to the Speaker.
And Speaker was kind enough to send it to me. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, so.
But then again, the special funds, I don't understand why you would take any kind of reserve from the special fund, especially when the governor doesn't have transfer authority. So why you would hold that. So I'm going to look into that, Lester. I'm not going to get into it right now, but I'm definitely going to look into maybe legislation down the road so that the governor does not, put any, bottleneck or choke on the neck on the money that we give them, especially it comes from special funds. There should not be reserved, taken out for them.
Yeah.
The other question I had is...
Senator, the money is always available. There's no choke. It's just a fiscal control measure.
Fiscal
it's
control.
It's not withheld.
Whatever you want to call it, because these agencies need the money. They need it now. We didn't appropriate, 90% of their budget to come in every month. We appropriated the full amount. So the next question I have is regarding the $10 million. We know it's actually the end of April on the ARP funding is actually $216,610,000. I think you were quoting maybe something in February. So the latest one is in April. The governor is taking $10 million out of the ARP funding to give to GURA, to let GURA borrow. Is that the story I'm hearing? Mr. Byrne?
10 million is being lent.
Okay, it's being lent to GURA to purchase some property, correct? From ARP funding, correct?
I believe that's what GURA is going to do with it.
So when does the ARP funding need to be spent? Because if you're lending money out to somebody, paying it back may take some time. So if we get this money back at a certain time, can we still spend it? Let's say, the deadline to spend all this money is at the end of the year. Now, this is not spending money, this is borrowing. So when GURA pays us back, how can we continue to use this money if it has a timeline to it?
Per the Treasury rules, a loan is a disbursement.
Huh? So when it comes back, when they pay us back, what happens? Do we lose that 10 million because it wasn't fully spent?
It is spent. That's the whole point. Per the Treasury rules.
Okay, but it's going to come back to us, Mr. Burns. I want to know what happens with that 10 million when it comes back after it's been repaid because it's a loan.
Yes, when it comes back to the government.
And we can still continue to have it. Oh gosh. There are so many rules on this ARP funding that what we can and cannot do. It's been morphing for the last 2 years. First you say we can't use it, now we can. Okay, so now we have to figure this one out. So real quick, Mr. Chair, stop my clock, please.
Keep going, your time is going to run out. Ask your last question, then we move to Senator Sinek.
GPA, how much credit do we have from the last power credit?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How much do we have a balance or in the last appropriation that we gave GPA that is not using credit? How much credit do you have?
On the last credit, we had $104,700. That was remitted to DOA.
Given back?
Yes.
Thank you, Senator Tideway. Senator Nicholas, you're the last one.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody, for being here and, being so gracious. I, too, was one of those senators that actually voted against that power measure a couple months ago, and only to find out that we had extra money later. But, I'm not going to hold you to that. You guys here were under oath, and you guys said that at the moment there wasn't enough money, and so I'll take that at its face value. On the other hand, what we're not highlighting here is there's $46 million in surplus, and that's probably due to maybe your good work and maybe good fiscal policy, and also the hard-working men and women out there who are, running their businesses and, keeping the wheels of government, the economy going. And so I'd like to thank them for that. I'm a very simple man. I like to call it the Antitita test. Would this bill help Antitita? Would this be good for her? I think so. I think it's a good bill. She's a reflection of a great majority of the island, and I think if we have the money and every opportunity to relieve some of the burdens on our people, I think we should. So as a child, think I was about 12 years old, and I remember one of my local heroes, Governor Ada, you know, gave away raises and raised their salaries, and it was just amazing. And I saw directly how that impacted the people. Even at that age, I saw how that was very helpful to give a surplus and do things in that manner. And I think that's a great thing. And I'm very thankful for the fact that we do have $46 million in a surplus. And for that, I think I would like to maybe extend that in an amendment and actually give 6 months of credit. But we'll wait for that in the time. But I'd like to thank you for your hard work and all your efforts, and you know, coming down here and entertaining us. And that's it. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Snickers. My colleagues, this ends the second round. We'll now proceed to the third round. I'll first have to excuse the panel. Thank you for participating from GPA, OFB, and BBMR and DOA. We'll see you later on this afternoon because we still have another bill, so for this site. And with that, we will recess until 2 o'clock, and then we'll come back and do the amendments, and then start after that with Bill 285. Thank you.